I've lived in New Zealand for 15 years now, and I've traveled quite a bit. But why are we always 10, 15 years behind the rest of the entire world? Why can't we just go, right, okay, we spent 4 years trying to revise NZ3910, right? We still came out with another version of the contract that adds more administration to it. Hasn't fundamentally solved any problems. Yeah. It still focuses on transferring risk from the client all the way down. Shit's flowing downhill, right? Everything we have 10 years behind. We could have just gone and adopted NEC. Okay, a different form of contract that balances risk between all parties. That's literally all we're talking about today. So how do we balance the risk? And how do we manage that risk so all the ships point in the right direction? Yeah.
I guess the first comment would be, those documents that are drafted, they need to be drafted by real life people, like that actually are involved in the industry and understand the pitfalls of the industry. They can't be drafted based on case law, like by a legal representative. No offence to legal people, but they need to be drafted by actually, real life people, construction companies and developers who actually understand the pitfalls in the industry. That's probably my first point.
Yeah, interesting though. But I guess the one other thing we could do as a nation is look overseas and see what other people are doing, how they're effectively communicating, how they're working well. I don't think we do enough of that in New Zealand.
No, it's fair, and I see it, in the planning industry, right? So in England, it's the planning system is very simple and set up very simple. Your reports that go into council are 2 pages long. That's all they need to be. They've got the option to decline it if they want, and then it goes back to you, and you get a free shot at resubmitting.
In comparison to New Zealand, how?
In comparison to New Zealand, we write a 40-page report for one house, and it's all regurgitated policy from the RMA. So we're policy heavy, right? And that's transferred. Yeah, and it's transferred to 3910. Now it's just become policy heavy, and it's just been littered with too much legal jargon. We just need to simplify it, I guess. Simplifying things creates efficiencies, right?
Whose accountability is that? How do we simplify it?
Starts at the top, doesn't it? Like it starts at
legislators.
Yeah, it starts at the government. They need to look at ways to simplify the building industry, and you can start from the start, and you can look at the complexities around town planning and why it takes so long. Well, it takes so long because someone's reading a 40-page report when actually they probably only need to read 2 pages. That's an example. The system in England was really efficient, and it was cheap. To lodge a planning application in England is £150. Over here, it's $10,000. So, and that's a deposit. So, and that's before they charge you more time over there.
So that's why
it's convoluted, complex. Yep, and there are people that benefit from that outside of the industry, and it's overly complex. But in actual fact, the irony behind it is that the New Zealand system is actually really simple because it's rule-based. So you either meet the rule or you don't meet the rule. Whereas over in England, it's policy-based. So you've got to put a policy argument together, which is a bit more subjective. But for some reason, it's a hell of a lot simpler over there.
But if it's rule-based, that's yes and no. Right?
But it's rule-based to protect the quarter-acre dream at this point. Like some of the rules are just they don't facilitate good design. They restrict good design, and they restrict simple constructability. They make constructability for the density that for Auckland to maintain itself as a city of worth across the world. We need to hit certain metrics. We need a certain number of people. We need a certain number of things, and we shot ourselves in the foot by trying to do that with the quarter-acre dream. I mean, you look at Auckland top to bottom, it's 150 kilometres, the biggest by land area in the world. It was ridiculous. I mean, and then all of these rules and everything.
Can you give me an example of where these rules that are in place restrict design and buildability on site?
Well, you'd be better to talk about that, but the height in relation to boundaries is a big one. Setbacks and things, they're trying to get us to build houses, dwellings close to one another, but they force a 1 metre setback across. So you're going to have these 4, 5, 6-storey buildings 2 metres apart. What is happening in that 2 metre space? Absolutely nothing. It's just dead space, especially once you start getting up high. It's just row housing not happening.
Yeah, and I think the kind of point to the conversation was once the client goes through, the developer and the client goes through that process and outlays all of that cost, including the time. It takes 12 to 14 months just to get consents in place. Once they go through that process, they get to the point where the construction company takes over, and we know that the construction company from experience are really critical in executing the project. They're exhausted. They've spent a lot of money. They don't want to spend any more on consultants to be involved. They're like, we've run out of money. And they're completely exhausted by all of the red tape that they've just gone through. And yet they're exhausted at the point in the contract, point in the process where it's probably the most critical. Yeah. They need to use all their energy down the other end as opposed to worrying about all of this red tape rubbish. And a lot of this planning red tape rubbish is rubbish. Like it's not really achieving much. I need to be careful on this.
Yeah, no, that's right. You don't need to be
careful, mate. We see it in the UK, having, as I said, having worked in local government over there, these consents they literally have 20, I think they had 10 working days they had to get it done. And if the council didn't get it done, they don't get funded from the government. So they then have to make a decision within that 10 days. They can't put it on hold, can't pause it. It's got to be made. That created probably a 1 to 2 month consent process through planning. And then their building consents are even easier. So, they were ready to be on site after 4 months, and they probably spent half of what we spend, even less. So the developers...
So in comparison to New Zealand, from paper to on site, give me an estimate of the time.
So New Zealand, it's roughly... The resource consents alone are 6 months, right? So it's roughly 12 to 14 months, depending on scale of the project. So we're 10 months, of course.
Yeah,
okay. TDC.
And so say 12 to 14 months from paper.
Yep.
From when I say, here's $10 million, I want to build 10 houses, to you actually put a spade in the ground. 14 months.
Yep.
12 to 14
probably. Months. Yep. And that doesn't include the downtime with sales and the downtime with finance and stuff. Yep. So it could be longer. I can only really comment on the planning side of the UK, but I know that it's roughly around 2 months to get through planning, and probably only half a month of that is council processing. So it's super quick, and I believe their building code is set up to be much more efficient as well. So they're probably more like 4 to 5 months to dig dirt.
So from paper to spade in the ground.
Yeah, and you can imagine the mood of the client at the 14-month mark versus the 6-month mark. Well, you've got a lot more energy after 6 months, haven't you? You're a little bit more motivated, and you're ready to tackle the hardest part of the process. Yeah. Whereas once we get to 14 months here, we're exhausted. The developer's
you've already moved on to other stuff.
Yeah.
Really interesting conversation. So key points, just to summarize there, is we need to simplify our planning process. We need to adopt digitalization.
100%.
Absolutely simplify. And fast track from how do we get from paper to spade in the ground, or from master designer to spade in the ground as quickly as possible.
Yep.
14 months is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yep. And we tell our clients that, on a weekly basis, and you can see the look on their face. They're like, what?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to be 2 months. And
New Zealand, we can do better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and just one other thing on that, if those rules relax, instead of us designers spending so much time trying to figure out how to get this design to fit the rules, we can take that time and get it to be more sustainable. We can get it to be a simpler construction or buildable. Or
let's start there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you can get the design to be more buildable, you've solved half the fucking problem.
Exactly. And so instead of trying to figure out how we can get it to fit some sort of weird recession plan, we can sit there and spend those 2 or 3 days coming up with the best way to build.
Absolutely, mate. Bang on. Ooh, okay, that was a long one.
Yep.
It was a long one, but it was like 2 mediums because there was a really
cool.
Nice
Awesome. Where do you guys want to go with this conversation?
That's pretty good. Look,
I'm
just enjoying the rant, to be honest.
I'm actually enjoying this too.
Getting a lot off my chest.
Yeah. Fucking free therapy.
No, but I mean, we've touched on that point, right? It's how, that those case studies are over there overseas, right? But we just do not adopt them.
We don't. That's half my problem. I'm like sitting down here and I'm going, guys, like.
And the irony with planning, like New Zealand planning system, is we've trained a significant generation of box tickers, and they're not creatives, so they're not big picture thinkers.
Yeah.
So because they know they can lean back on those boxes that just need to be ticked,
Yeah.
and that creates dysfunction within the industry as well.
Mm.
Like yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So how many more?
We've got 4 mediums so far.
Alright.
Yeah,
Can we do one or two? One more?
Time for 2, but if you've got to.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
to you though.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for me?
How would you fix it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, mate. Let's go. Okay. Hang on. Are we ready to roll?
Just onto the bathroom.
Okay, cool. Sorry, we'll just wait for him to get
Yeah,
back.
yeah, cool. Give you time to think.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Hang on, that's the worst thing you can do to me. Give me time to think.
Yeah, I mean,
Literally give me time to think.
you've worked overseas, right? How would you fix it?
Yeah,
You know?
okay. Well, let's wait for the cameraman to get back.
One Network News.
Mm.
Oh, how would I fucking fix it? No idea.
Yeah, well, the CRM one's interesting, because it's kind of like, it's like BIM again. You know, we've got all these tools, BIM, out there that, you know, we could technically draw it to suit and solve problems before we get on site, but no one pays for it, especially at our scale.
That's how I would fix it.
Yeah.
Digitalization.
Yeah, same. But I think, well, I mean, it's probably going to start getting there, especially with AI starting to come into it. It'll start getting us to a point where we can. It'll also be quite cool if these companies that bring out the products are then forced to also bring out a BIM file that has everything loaded, so I can just grab it, put it in the building.
But
There's a
the
lot
other
more
thing
you
as
can do
well
with
is
the
like,
file, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
I've
amounts.
got to show you some stuff that we do with BIM. It's fucking mind blowing. Like I can animate an entire 3D model
Mm.
to. I'll save it for the fucking video.
Yeah.
the other thing as well is like, you know, particularly to the consultant side of the industry, is just get off your fucking chair.
Yeah.
Go to site.
Tell me
Like,
about it.
because once you see it on site, you get an appreciation for it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Too often,
Yeah.
no one turns up, or they
No.
just don't
Through-
see stuff.
Through
Like,
COVID, I helped write the methodology and the strategy for the Winston Waldwood's job in Tauranga.
Yep.
You know, the gym board factory. Yeah, I quantified it. I did the right things, pulled out a BOQ, whatnot, and wrote the program. But the day one, I went and stood on site, and I was like, holy fuck, this site's huge.
There you go.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, I've never seen such a, this is like just a big tin shed.
But-
But you look at it in a drawing, you look at an A3 sheet, you look at an A3 sheet, and you just don't appreciate how big it is, right?
yeah.
Then COVID was done and drove to Tauranga, and I was like, I could not believe my eyes. Walking from one end to the other end would literally take you 5 minutes.
Mm.
But I suspect
Gigafactory.
one of the problems is what we just talked about earlier, right? Like the industry is just littered with dealing with red tape. So
You know what I mean?
so they're behind their desks addressing bullshit council queries, or
Yeah.
you know they're exhausted like dealing with all the rules and policies they've got to deal with. They don't have time to go to site.
Yeah.
It's completely upside down.
No.
So you're actually better off to be at site 70% of your time and 30% in the office.
Yeah.
If you're a structural engineer, or if you're a civil engineer, or, you know, because those are the things that can make or break a project, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like if they go wrong.
Design. Because it's the paper wall as well, isn't it? It's like literally, I've seen a job that I'm working on, they raise one RFI on average per working day.
Wow. That's crazy. So the drawings
It
are
is the state of the industry.
just not up to standard.
Is it that? Or is it, why wouldn't you have a fucking designer on site? Why do you have to raise an RFI?
Yeah.
Why can't you walk over to his desk?
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just come up to you and say, hey mate, this is design. Have you thought about this? This doesn't work.
We saw the value of that.
Can we just fucking redesign it? Can you like sort it out in the next 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You'd
And
be
then,
like, "Oh, yeah,
and then I'll
easy
be like,
fix."
no, I've got to go away, talk to this person, write out this, give out this, check with council, check with that, and then I'll come back to you in 4 working days. It's just
Okay. On the other hand, let me put this out to you, right? So let's say I've just raised like 1 RFI per working day. You've exhausted your design budget. Yep. So you're like, I don't give a fuck about this job. Like I don't have budget on this job, but the builder is now raising all of these fucking queries. You're already working on another project. You're master picture drawer, right? And you just go. Suddenly it piles up, and they go construction's on standstill. Now you got to start working on all of this. How do you pick up 50 RFIs and start addressing all of them.
I mean, you're motivated in that regard though, because you're
Not if we're not engaged.
you've got liability. If we're not engaged, you're not motivated, but you've got liability risk, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But you got 50 though. How would you pick the most important?
I'd tell them to tell me which is most important.
Sure. And
Yeah.
they will tell you if they fucking knew. They have no fucking idea. Ask
True.
me, I'll tell you. They have no fucking idea what's important, what's not. Yeah. Maybe the obvious ones.
they want
yeah.
it done
They-
last week.
They'll look at everything that's 1 month ahead, yes, but they will not look at what's going to impact the completion date and tell you this is what I need you to focus on because this affects a procurement chain of events. That's going to take me X amount of time. That's then going to impact my installation. All they can see is like fucking horseshoe, right? Or I'm building my substructure. Everything else is not important. Just fucking focus on my substructure. Obviously, that's important. I'm not saying it's not, but there's other things you're missing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And if you're raising one a day, that's fucking insanity.
It's a
So-
lot.
that's a lot. Yeah, there's something.
No. You say it's a lot. That's average for New Zealand construction.
Wow.
That's average for commercial construction. You're talking about residential. You have less problems in residential. 1 RFI a day on a commercial build is normal. Is normalized.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say we have less problems.
go.
I think we can start, yeah.
Yeah.
Just go. Because we're already well there. We'll cut that, don't worry. And yeah, it's all good. We can cut when it comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Just go from there.
Alright. You do the swapping or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You guys have questions? For
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Yeah, so
we're rolling now. We're not on break anymore.
we're going to throw it back at you, Andy.
Yeah.
Like, we're sitting here saying what we think you can do to improve the industry, but you come from that background, right? And you've been overseas, so
I've been overseas.
over to you. You've worked overseas. Over
Yeah.
to you.
I worked in resi builds. I worked in commercial builds.
Put you on the hotspot.
Put me on the hotspot. What would I do? Our consent process is inefficient. We've established that. We've identified that. Yep. Got to focus on fixing it. I'll ensure that every job that gets built has a 3D model. Yeah. It's BIM, but you would want to take it one step further. Yeah. You have Uniclass as a coding system within the model. Why don't you take it one step further and standardize how you actually code that model for procurement, for buildability, for, So then you start making that model the centroid of your entire project. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So today, from a program perspective, I'm a very lazy person, right? Okay. I can sit down and actually take a 3D model. If you've, Mr. Master Picture Drawer, if you've done your job right, I can sit and actually press a button and get an output of every single task in the program, or every single element in the program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then has associated volumes with it. Yeah. Steel on level 1, right? How many UBs, how many UCs, whatever. Yeah. Right. And if you coded all of that properly, now I've almost got a program. Think about it. It's an element. Now all I have to do is add a verb before it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Install steel. Right. The model's already got the quantities in them. Now I've got to assign a production rate to it. I know it's standardized. You know how many pieces of steel you can put a day. You're constrained by your crane lifting ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 pieces a day, 12 pieces a day. Yep. Maximum. There you go. Worked it out. And then now you got logic, right? We've been building buildings since the fucking pyramids.
Yeah.
Yep. You're constrained by rules of gravity. Yep. Predefine half your logic.
Yeah.
Who takes the liability if it's drawn wrong?
If it's drawn wrong,
in the
I mean,
3D model?
I'm not talking about liabilities. I'm talking about efficiencies here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you're going to be accountable for the design.
Yeah.
And the main construction company is going to be accountable for the build. I'm saying, how do we make this entire process more efficient, right? Like once that 3D model then becomes a centroid, every design change you make, you then uprev the entire 3D model.
Yeah.
Who's appointed to kind of execute that though?
That's a really interesting question, right? Because that's always been the fight between the construction companies and the design companies, because the construction companies go, give me a 3D model, and then the design companies are always reluctant to hand it over. Always reluctant to hand it over. I don't know why. Right?
Liability, for sure.
IP.
Because the 3D model normally, always influences our 2D drawings, right? But our 2D drawings are checked and done, and we send those out, and we're happy for our liability to be on the drawings. But the
Agreed.
3D model is a can of worms, because everyone models differently, everyone's drawn differently, things
That's
can
the
be
problem.
hidden.
Standardization. We've got to get to standardization.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
I reckon
Yep.
AI will help with that. Like,
Absolutely.
There's a bit of that coming out at the moment.
Simplification, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So then now think about it, right? I can actually take my entire 3D model and I can visualize in a heat map on my 3D model on where my biggest variations have been.
Fair enough.
Why not?
Yeah,
It's
that's
powerful.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
I can now take my 3D model and run TikTok for construction. Yep. I'm going to explain to a guy what his 3-week look ahead is. Yep. On site. I now give him a fucking piece of paper with lines on it, and he now has to decipher those lines and now put a location on site and say, I need to do this in that particular zone. I need to do this particular task. But he's reading a paper. Imagine I could convert that and say, here's a 1 minute clip. This is what an animated 1 minute clip of a 4D simulation.
Yeah.
And say, this is what you're doing this week.
That'd be
Yeah.
brilliant.
Great.
Yeah, because we are a generation.
Got it on
where-
site. iPad.
Mate, it says this is what do they call it? Doom scrolling. That's literally what we do, right?
Yeah.
We're so used to doom scrolling. So why can't we get these guys to doom scroll
On site.
construction methodology?
Yeah. Yeah.
How come why not?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sweet. Then get rid of all the project management companies.
Oh,
I like that.
Yeah. Well, why do we need them? They are literally they are literally pushing paper from one end to the other. You've now eliminated an entire pool. I'm not saying get rid of them, repurpose them, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really
yeah,
care.
yeah.
Right? I'm talking about getting all the ships pointed in the right direction for a better outcome for the client. So we build smarter, faster, better.
yeah. So get rid of council too. No.
Can we?
Well, I mean, potentially, like if council comes in at that point where, the company and council comes in and pulls together the BIM software or the BIM elements.
Yep.
And so there's a BIM element somewhere online that I can click, grab, drop, and that I know that element is signed off by council and that element is signed off by the supplier or company or whoever it is. And then the model is suddenly just a combination of everything that's already been pre-approved.
Yeah.
Send that to council. Council can check through the model info, be like, it's all okay.
Yep.
Done.
And that can
See you
transfer to inspections, right? So
Mm.
they can utilise that model during inspections.
Yeah. 100%. Why not?
Like, to tick things
why
off.
can't you pre-approve your entire what do you produce? So you produce a PS1, a PS2, a PS3, and a PS4.
Yeah.
Those are all the producer statements, right? So as a designer, you're accountable for PS1 and 2. Am I right? Something like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the installer is accountable for PS3.
Yep.
And then there's an independent verifier who does PS4.
Correct. Yep.
Fuck, I hope I got that right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Nice.
That's right?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was winging that a bit. but yeah, so why can't we get all of that on the BIM model?
Well, I mean, the tools
Obviously,
are
you
there,
can't get
right?
a piece. It's just a piece of
It's-
paper
at
in
the
the end of
moment,
the day,
it's
but
just-
that's liability right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just at the moment. I mean, the tools are there. Like with everything we've just talked about, there's the potential for that to happen.
Absolutely.
It's just we'd have to hire like 3 different BIM model managers in
Well,
house.
no, you don't. See, this is the problem, right? What you don't. Yeah. What? There's so many tools out there that can make this entire process so efficient. I may this may be like blue sky thinking and just go like
That's all good.
yeah, why not though? But nobody's doing it.
No.
Literally nobody's doing it. We're still stuck in the old ways of communicating.
That's that technology I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's huge potential and untapped market for this in the construction industry.
Yep.
Like I absolutely believe it.
Yep.
Believe it to be true.
Yep.
No, I agree. I'd love to do it. I just think it'd take me hours and hours and hours. And
It
hours.
won't take you hours and hours. What if we work together?
To come up with it.
Absolutely. Come up with a process. So let's say I'm the planner, you're the master picture drawer, right? We sit down together and I say, you're going to make my life 100 times easier if you can code these elements into the model in your design. That means you're helping buildability or helping me write the program.
Yeah.
So you now help me write the program. I can now then feed back into the model to say, I can simulate it and we can now improve communication. So
Yeah.
there's just one idea that you and I could work together to actually fix effective communication on
Yep.
site.
And it assists in that stop-start stuff that we get, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, which slows companies down.
It slows them a lot. So if we can improve that communication on site by 1%, mate, I'll tell you what, we are in the right track.
No, I agree.
Yep,
I
100%.
agree.
Yep.
So I don't think it's going to take an army of people to do it. I think it's about the existing people working together.
Yep.
The designers, the project management companies, and the builders.
Yep.
And the subcontractors, the entire pool. And we need effective contracts that's going to enable better digitalization, that's going to enable collaboration. I keep fucking saying this over and over again, almost in every podcast I'm in, but it's the truth. I don't think there's any other way to...
And that extends, right? That extends all the way through to suppliers. So there's a breakdown in the way that that's communicated, which is, in a sense, what the role of the project manager is. The current way it's set up as a site manager is running communication lines with the suppliers, right? And there's no real system. There's ring them up, mitre 10 up on the day and deliver me this. There's no real system of who's actually coordinating that in advance to speed things up further on site. I noticed that with our project. Like they do it on the day almost, and then some don't turn up. So that slows things down as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's an easy technology, system that you could set up, right? Like another form of communication.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I mean, there's more, but I could keep going on about it.
There's a business in there somewhere.
Oh, mate, I think we've spoken about at least 3 business ideas today, which is quite interesting. Yeah, maybe we should go for a coffee after this. Or a beer.